Jeff Bezos once admitted he barely has cash, yet he owns more square footage than some governments. How can you be worth $200 billion but claim you're broke? This isn't just Bezos. Elon Musk has mortgaged mansions, borrowed against Tesla shares, and called himself cash poor while launching rockets into space. Bernard Arnault, the king of luxury, can lose billions in a single day on the stock market, but the family empire never weakens. Because billionaires don't keep their money the way you think. They don't stack cash in vaults. They engineer systems, legal, invisible, untouchable, that turn money into something more powerful than currency. And once you understand where the money actually goes, you'll realize wealth isn't just hidden, it's transformed. But to see how it works, we have to start with the greatest illusion of all, the myth that billionaires live on cash. Imagine opening your banking app and seeing $200 billion in your balance. That's how most people picture billionaires. Digital vaults overflowing with endless zeros, but in reality, almost no billionaire actually holds wealth in cash. For Jeff Bezos, less than 1% of his fortune sits in anything liquid. The rest lives inside Amazon stock. He doesn't own the cash, he owns the company. If Amazon stock plunges, so does his net worth. Yet he can still buy yachts, jets, and mansions without ever cashing out. This is the paradox. The richest people on Earth often describe themselves as cash poor. Elon Musk admitted this during Tesla's meteoric rise. Despite being one of the richest men alive, he borrowed money against Tesla shares to pay for his lifestyle. He even sold mansions, claiming he wanted to own no home. But the real reason is simple. For billionaires, stocks are safer than cash. Cash gets taxed. Stocks can be borrowed against, leveraged, or quietly passed into trusts. Bernard Arnault offers another example. In 2022, his fortune rose and fell by tens of billions in a matter of days. But Arnault didn't walk into a vault to withdraw billions. He controlled luxury empires, Louis Vuitton, Dior, Tiffany. His money wasn't money. It was power disguised as ownership. The Walton dynasty, heirs to Walmart, are another case study. Their wealth is tied to Walmart stock and family trusts. The dynasty's worth swings by billions daily. But no matter the number on the ticker, the family controls an empire of stores, supply chains, and real estate. Their spending power never really changes. This is the first secret. Billionaires don't live on banknotes. They live on equity. Their money breathes with the companies they control. But here's the twist. Even this visible wealth, the stock market, the empire, the boardroom shares, is only half the story. Because the question isn't just what billionaires own, it's how they keep it hidden, shielded, and untouchable. And that leads us to the next layer of the system. Offshore accounts, secret trusts, and tax havens where billions vanish on paper but never in reality. If Part 1 revealed that billionaires don't live on cash, Part 2 uncovers where their money actually disappears. For decades, the word Swiss bank was shorthand for secrecy, a vault in Zurich guarded by steel doors where no government could peek. But the richest players have moved beyond that old world. Today, the real vaults are invisible. Offshore trusts, shell companies, and places on the map that most of us couldn't find without a globe. Take the Cayman Islands. A cluster of sunlit beaches, yet it's home to more registered companies than people. Billions flow through the island, not in suitcases of cash, but through paperwork, shell corporations that exist on paper but nowhere in reality. These companies don't build products, they build invisibility. Then there's Panama. In 2016, the Panama Papers shook the world. A leak of 11 million documents revealed how heads of state, athletes, celebrities, and billionaires quietly funneled fortunes into secret companies. One real estate mogul used shell firms to buy luxury apartments. Another oil tycoon moved profits offshore to avoid taxes. Suddenly, the world saw how the ultra-wealthy played a different game, one where money could vanish from the taxman's view with the stroke of a lawyer's pen. Even household names were touched by these revelations. Some denied wrongdoing, some claimed everything was legal, but the leaks proved a chilling point. The global financial system is designed with exits for those who can afford the ticket. And here's the twist most people never hear. Billionaires don't always need to fly their wealth to an island. In fact, some of the most powerful havens are sitting quietly inside the United States. South Dakota, for example, isn't just farmland and quiet towns. Over the last 3 decades, it transformed into a fortress for billionaires. The state changed its laws to allow perpetual trusts, financial vehicles where money can sit untouched for centuries. Families like the Waltons, the Kochs, and other dynasties quietly shift assets into South Dakota trusts, shielding billions from taxes and lawsuits. It's not offshore, it's onshore, but just as untouchable. Delaware is another example. The state has fewer than 1 million residents, but it's home to more than 1 million corporations. Why? Because Delaware allows anonymous ownership. A penthouse in Manhattan or a skyscraper in London can be purchased by a Delaware LLC, and no one will know who stands behind it. That empty condo overlooking Central Park? It might belong to a billionaire you've never heard of, or one you know very well. This shadow system is what makes wealth seem like smoke. It moves from Panama to Delaware, from Zurich to South Dakota, changing names and forms until no one can follow the trail. And when governments try to regulate, the laws themselves bend under pressure from lobbyists funded by the same fortunes they're meant to control. One American senator once described it bluntly, "We don't know who owns what anymore. That's not an accident, it's the design." And this leads us to the second great truth about billionaire money. It isn't just stored. It's hidden in plain sight, protected not by safes or locks, but by legal codes written for those with the power to influence them. But even with all these offshore webs and invisible trusts, there's still a limit. Paper ownership, after all, can only do so much, which is why the ultra-rich turn to something else, things you can see, touch, and sail across oceans. Because the next frontier of hidden wealth isn't in banks or trusts at all. It's in art diamonds and yachts that move across borders like shadows. If tax havens are the vaults, then trusts and family offices are the engines that keep billionaire wealth alive. To the average person, a trust fund sounds like a safety net for spoiled heirs. But in the billionaire world, trusts are fortresses. They don't just pass money to children. They shield fortunes from lawsuits, divorces, and even governments. A billionaire can place billions into a trust, legally separating themselves from ownership, yet still control how it's spent. On paper, the money is gone. In reality, it never left their grasp. South Dakota's perpetual trusts are the most infamous. Here, assets can sit for centuries, growing tax-free, untouched by inheritance laws. This is how dynasties like the Waltons, heirs to the Walmart empire, ensure their fortune doesn't just survive one generation, it multiplies across 10. While most families worry about college tuition, billionaire dynasties worry about structuring wealth to outlive entire nations. Then there are family offices, the most secretive institutions in global finance. Imagine a private company staffed with ex-Goldman Sachs bankers, top lawyers, and investment managers, all working for one client, a billionaire family. That's a family office. The Rockefellers pioneered this model over a century ago, creating one of the first family offices to manage their oil fortune. Today, there are more than 10,000 family offices worldwide, controlling trillions of dollars. They don't just buy stocks, they buy entire industries. They invest in private equity, real estate, venture capital, and they operate in silence, away from the eyes of regulators, because they're not banks. The Walton family has one, so does Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates runs Cascade Investment, his personal family office, which quietly owns stakes in railroads, hotels, and farmland across America. These offices give billionaires something priceless: anonymity. When a family office buys a skyscraper or invests in a startup, it doesn't carry the billionaire's name. It carries the name of an obscure LLC buried in layers of paperwork. And here's the kicker: family offices don't just manage money, they manage influence. They hire lobbyists, fund think tanks, and donate to causes that protect their long-term interests. A billionaire doesn't need to run for office. Their family office does the work for them, shaping laws in the background. This is where wealth becomes dynasty. The money isn't just for the individual billionaire. It's engineered to outlive them, to pass down silently like royalty. Bernard Arnault, the French luxury titan, is already grooming his children to inherit control of LVMH. The Murdoch family has trusts that hold power over media empires, passing influence like an heirloom. Even Elon Musk has quietly set up structures to funnel his Tesla and SpaceX fortune into the next generation. For the ultra-rich, money isn't just about what they can buy today, it's about making sure no one can touch it tomorrow. Trust shield, family offices multiply, and together they ensure billionaire wealth isn't just hidden, it's eternal. But there's still a question: why keep wealth in paper structures when it can be turned into something physical, beautiful, and mobile? Because the next layer of secrecy is far more seductive. From paintings that hang in private vaults to yachts longer than city blocks, billionaires turn money into objects the world can see, yet never touch. And that's where their greatest escape begins. When most people think of hidden wealth, they picture offshore accounts or secret trusts. But billionaires have another strategy, one you can see with your own eyes, yet still never get close to. They transform money into objects: yachts, art, diamonds, even entire islands. Take yachts, not the kind you rent for a weekend in Miami, but floating palaces that cost hundreds of millions. Some stretch longer than a football field, equipped with helipads, submarines, even missile defense systems. Roman Abramovich's yacht Eclipse was once valued at $1.5 billion. On paper, it's just another asset, but in reality, it's a moving fortress. Registered in offshore jurisdictions, shielded by shell companies, and constantly on the move, it's nearly impossible to pin down who truly controls it. And if governments freeze assets, a yacht can simply slip into international waters. Art is another favorite. A single canvas can be worth more than a skyscraper, but it takes up no more space than a doorframe. Jeff Bezos, Steve Cohen, and Bernard Arnault are among the billionaires who pour fortunes into rare art. Some of it hangs in private galleries, but much of it never sees daylight. Instead, it sits in free ports, high-security warehouses in Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Singapore. These free ports act like limbo zones. Art stored inside isn't technically imported, so it avoids taxes. Paintings worth hundreds of millions can change hands without ever leaving the building, hidden behind steel doors. Then there are diamonds, gold bars, and rare collectibles. Portable, anonymous, easy to move across borders. In 2019, investigators uncovered how certain oligarchs funneled fortunes into rare gems, storing them in vaults where even governments struggle to prove ownership. For billionaires, these are not trinkets, they are currency. Even wine becomes wealth. Billionaires quietly invest in rare vintages, bottles that may never be opened but can sell for millions at auctions. It's not about taste, it's about transformation. Liquid cash turned into liquid assets, immune to inflation and difficult to trace. And then there's the ultimate fortress: islands. Richard Branson's Necker Island is one example, but he's far from alone. Dozens of billionaires own private islands, some developed into resorts, others left untouched. Islands offer privacy, status, and a form of wealth that doesn't sit inside a spreadsheet. When the world becomes unstable, an island becomes both escape and symbol, a reminder that some fortunes can literally carve out their own countries. What ties all these assets together isn't luxury, it's invisibility. A billionaire doesn't need to hide money in a vault when they can anchor it in Monaco, hang it in a free port, or lock it in a vault disguised as an art collection. These objects aren't just toys, they are shields, tangible fortresses that carry value across borders without anyone truly knowing their worth. But here's the twist. As impressive as yachts and art may be, there is still one category of asset that hides more wealth than all of them combined. One that turns cities themselves into billionaire storage lockers. And that category is real estate. From London mansions bought by shell companies to empty penthouses in Manhattan, the richest people on Earth have turned cities into vaults of stone and glass. If yachts drift and art hides in vaults, real estate stands tall in plain sight. Billionaires pour more hidden money into concrete, glass, and steel than any other asset class on Earth. Why? Because property is both fortress and disguise. Walk down London's Billionaires Row, Kensington Palace Gardens. Behind the gates sit mansions worth hundreds of millions, many owned by offshore companies. On paper, the names attached are obscure corporations registered in places like the British Virgin Islands or Jersey. But dig deeper, and those mansions often trace back to oligarchs, oil barons, or tech moguls. Neighbors rarely see the owners. The houses sit empty, their only purpose, to store wealth in brick and marble. New York tells the same story. On 57th Street, nicknamed Billionaires Row, glass towers pierce the skyline. Apartments inside sell for over $100 million, yet many remain dark at night. That's because the owners don't live there. They use shell companies to quietly park money. One Hyde Park in London is another case. This ultra-luxury complex boasts some of the world's most expensive apartments, many owned anonymously through offshore structures. Investigators once found entire floors controlled by trusts linked to billionaires who never set foot in the building. Real estate offers something unique. Unlike stocks, property doesn't evaporate with market swings. Unlike art, it doesn't need storage. And unlike yachts, it doesn't draw headlines when it sails into a harbor. Property is immovable, solid, and easy to justify. Everyone needs a home, after all. But for billionaires, these aren't homes. They're vaults. Vaults with marble kitchens, infinity pools, and views over Central Park. Vaults where billions can sit safely while appearing entirely legitimate. Consider Bernard Arnault, who has quietly assembled a global real estate portfolio alongside his luxury empire. Or the Walton family, whose holdings include vast tracts of American farmland, quietly appreciating in value year after year. Bill Gates, through Cascade Investment, owns more farmland than anyone in the United States, hundreds of thousands of acres. These aren't purchases for comfort, they're strategies. Land holds value, produces income, and slips easily under the radar compared to stock trades or cash transfers. And it's not just Western capitals. In Dubai, billionaires snap up penthouses and entire skyscrapers. In Singapore and Hong Kong, luxury real estate has become a magnet for hidden fortunes. In these global cities, ownership can be stacked in layers. A trust owns a company, the company owns an LLC, the LLC owns the apartment. By the time investigators trace the trail, the true owner is invisible. Governments occasionally try to fight back. The UK introduced a registry to reveal the true owners of offshore-held property. The US began requiring title companies to identify cash buyers of luxury homes. But loopholes remain. For every law, a team of lawyers in a billionaire's family office is already crafting a new workaround. And here lies the irony. The cities where we live and work are quietly transformed into storage vaults for global fortunes. Entire towers in New York, entire neighborhoods in London, entire swaths of farmland in America, all serving as silent balance sheets for the world's richest families. But even with these concrete fortresses, real estate alone isn't enough. Because the ultimate hiding place for billionaire wealth isn't physical at all. It's something less visible, yet far more powerful. The ability to shape the rules themselves. Because what good is a vault, a yacht, or a mansion if you can rewrite the laws that decide who gets to keep them? That's the final secret of billionaire money. Yachts can be seized, mansions can be investigated, even offshore accounts can be exposed. But there's one hiding place no government can truly touch: the law itself. The most powerful billionaires don't just stash money, they engineer the rules that protect it. Through lobbying, campaign donations, and think tanks, wealth transforms into something more dangerous than secrecy: permanence. In the United States, lobbying is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Every year, corporations and wealthy individuals funnel money into shaping tax codes, trade laws, and regulations. When a billionaire pays lobbyists, they're not hiding money in the shadows. They're using it to bend the spotlight itself. Take the carried interest loophole. For decades, hedge fund managers, many worth billions, have used this quirk in tax law to pay lower rates than ordinary workers. It survives because lobbying keeps it alive. Efforts to close it surface every few years, only to disappear quietly after immense pressure from financial powerhouses. Then there are campaign donations. While ordinary citizens vote once every few years, billionaires write checks that echo for decades. The Koch brothers became infamous for building entire political networks, funding candidates, and influencing legislation. George Soros, on the other side of the spectrum, spends fortunes on policy initiatives and causes. Elon Musk has openly admitted to donating to both political parties, not for ideology, but for access. For billionaires, politics isn't about belief, it's about insurance. Family offices play their part too. They don't just manage investments, they direct philanthropic foundations, sponsor think tanks, and endow universities. These institutions don't always look like lobbying, but they shape the intellectual battlefield. They decide what's researched, what's debated, and what's dismissed. When wealth funds knowledge itself, it doesn't need to shout. It whispers into the next generation's textbooks. Globally, the same pattern plays out. Oligarchs in Russia weave wealth into political power so tightly the two are indistinguishable. Tech moguls in China partner with the state, securing protection while advancing national goals. In France, Bernard Arnault's empire isn't just luxury goods, it's cultural influence, media ownership, and relationships with government elites. And here's the chilling truth. This shadow system doesn't just protect wealth, it expands it. When tax codes favor capital gains, when loopholes shield trusts, when real estate purchases stay anonymous, these aren't accidents. They're the fingerprints of influence. That's why billionaire fortunes can disappear on paper one day and reappear the next. It's not magic, it's design. While the average worker files taxes each April, billionaires pay teams of lawyers and lobbyists year-round to ensure the rules themselves are tilted in their favor. Which brings us back to the central question, where do billionaires keep their money? The answer isn't a vault, it isn't a yacht, it isn't even a mansion in Manhattan. They keep it in the shadows of influence, in the quiet corridors where laws are written, and in the silence of loopholes that never close. Because for the ultra-rich, the ultimate hiding place isn't an object, it's power. And once you see that wealth isn't just stored, but woven into the very system that governs us, the final piece of the puzzle becomes clear. Billionaire money isn't just hidden, it's untouchable. We began with a paradox, billionaires worth hundreds of billions, yet calling themselves cash poor. From Jeff Bezos to Elon Musk, from Arnault to the Waltons, the richest among us don't live on stacks of dollars. Their money is never really money. It's equity, empires, and influence dressed in the illusion of numbers on a screen. We followed the trail through offshore havens, Panama, the Caymans, South Dakota, places where fortunes dissolve into legal fog. We saw the machinery of trusts and family offices, silent dynasties built to last centuries. We watched as money transformed into fortresses of steel and marble, yachts with missile defense systems, art vaults holding masterpieces no one will ever see, penthouses standing dark in the heart of the world's richest cities. And finally, we arrived at the truth no vault can contain. Billionaire money doesn't just hide, it rules. It rewrites the tax codes, funds the campaigns, shapes the universities, and whispers into the corridors of power. So where do billionaires keep their money? Everywhere and nowhere. In yachts that move across borders, in skyscrapers that stand empty, in farmland stretching beyond the horizon, in paintings locked in free ports, in trusts that will outlive entire nations. And most of all, in influence. The kind that bends laws, shields dynasties, and ensures the wealth never truly disappears. For most of us, money is survival. It buys food, rent, security. For billionaires, money becomes myth. A myth that can lose billions in a day, yet still build palaces tomorrow. A myth that slips beyond regulation, beyond borders, beyond the reach of ordinary life. And that's the final secret. Billionaire money isn't kept at all, it's engineered. It flows like water, shifting forms, finding cracks, carving out channels that only those at the very top can follow. Which leaves us with a haunting thought. Wealth at this scale isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in time, in power, in permanence. Because fortunes fade, empires fall, even dynasties eventually crumble. But the system that lets billionaires turn money into myth, that for now feels eternal.